Okay. So, as I told you today, what we are going to do is first half an hour we'll just first portray the physical geography because that is the first part. As you know, we are going to start, and then we will begin with our topic of climatology. Okay. So, if you talk about the topic of physical geography, as I have told you, generally what has happened, there has been overemphasis on physical geography. Abhi, for example, just now before this class, I was taking another class, and we were dealing with one question, and this question was examine how geographic factors determine the distribution of population. Okay, so this was essentially the question. Now, what happens is most of the people treat geographic factors, the geography or the geographic factors as basically what? Physical geography factors. Okay, physical geography factors. I have seen this mistake in many of the books also. So tell me, is geography only physical geography? Definitely not. It is also human geography. Okay. So what has happened is there has been definitely this kind of overemphasis which has been given to the physical geography. Now, even within physical geography, there are 5 topics as you know. So फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी की अगर हम पहले थोड़ा सा फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी को बताऊं कि व्हाट इज एसेंशियली फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी. So in simple words, physical geography, we will say that it is study of environment. Study of the environment is referred to as the physical geography. That is the primary scope of physical geography. If you remember, we have said geography is study of what? Geography is study of human and environment relationship. Human and environment relationship is essentially geography. Okay. Now, that means if I have to study human environment relationship, can I say I will have to also understand environment? Okay. I will also have to understand the environment. So in physical geography, we are studying the environment and its various elements. Okay. So if I talk about environment and its various elements, I would say one element of the environment is what? It is lithosphere. One more element of the environment is what? The atmosphere. Another element of the environment is hydrosphere. Hydrosphere. And another element of the environment is the biosphere. So there are 4 major elements of the environment, and you know all of these are interlinked to each other. They are interlinked to each other. So you know this lithosphere, the study of the lithosphere, we are doing in geomorphology. Geomorphology. Study of the atmosphere we are doing as a part of climatology. Hydrosphere, oceanography is the topic where we are focusing upon the hydrosphere, mainly the marine hydrosphere. And if you talk about biogeography is the topic which is there to study the biosphere. You know that as we are saying, they are all interrelated to each other. So there is another topic in our syllabus, that is environmental geography. So environmental geography studies the interrelationship that exists between these spheres of environment. Okay? So that is basically what is essentially physical geography. It is study of the environment and essentially its components. Okay? Now, very clearly, important thing about physical geography, traditionally speaking, physical geography is, or I would say, it was essentially based upon the idea of being science. ठीक है? It is very scientific in nature. Scientific. And when scientific term comes to my mind, one term also emerges with that, and this is what we call it as, it has lots of objectivity. Yes or no? It is characterized by huge degree of objectivity. ठीक है? So, traditionally speaking, how physical geography has been studied is that here human beings are treated as just other species. Okay? So, in physical geography, traditionally, humans are treated as just another species. So, traditionally speaking, humans are just another species. Okay? So this means that they are not special, something special. They are just like any other species. So tell me, if they are just like any other species, does it means that the laws of environment should also apply on them? The laws of the environment would also apply on them. And once you treat human beings not as special species, just as ordinary species, bringing that objectivity becomes comparatively easier. Because human beings की खास बात क्या है? They are very, very variable. There is high variability, there is very high subjectivity, which is part and parcel of being human. ठीक है? So human being, they are thinking something else in the morning, दोपहर आते आते something else, by night something else. So there is very, very high variability which is present in the human beings. Now, if you want to develop science, clearly you will have to reduce this variability. So one of the ways which was used by the physical geographers to make the subject more scientific and objective was to reduce the role of human beings. So it was essentially, बाद में हम हमारे syllabus में topic है determinism. So we will see that it was highly deterministic in nature in which it was studied. Okay, so determinism is a philosophy which says that everything is pre-decided. There are some laws which govern the activities of this world. Okay, so traditionally speaking, physical geography has developed in this manner. It is more deterministic. It has been more deterministic. Although recent times mein what has happened, there is a change. Particularly this change has come after 1970s. And after 1970s, one theme which has become very popular in physical geography, this theme is the case of applied physical geography. Applied physical geography. So applied physical geography में very clearly application for whom? For the humanity. ठीक है? Although बाद में देखेंगे कि आज की डेट में human, what is human and humanness, the definition has clearly expanded. It has changed. So who can have human rights, that humanness? this definition keeps on expanding. Okay, for example, some of you might would have seen that movie ted 2 देखा है? So it is based simply upon this concept of who can be called as human beings or who can be treated as human beings. In recent times, you must have heard about the courts giving legal status to even a river, that is Ganga river. So essentially what has happened, should be treated as human, and under this idea of humanness, it has been expanding. Whatever, but basically when we are talking about the applied physical geography, it is about the welfare of the human beings. So slowly what has happened, there has been a kind of synthesis, a merger between what was physical geography, which was based upon the basic idea that human beings are special creatures, they are special species. ठीक है? So बाद में देखेंगे, there is one idea referred to as the metaphysical humanism. So metaphysical humanism says that humans are very special species. They have been created by God. So God took a holiday of few weeks, सोचा कि कुछ बढ़िया बनाते हैं, and he came up with the humans. You can imagine कि God is also limited if you look at the status of humans today. So whatever, this is essentially your metaphysical humanism. So human geography is based upon this idea. Now, in applied physical geography, there is some convergence between the human geography and the physical geography. So here, human are very, very clearly entering, and they are being treated as some kind of special species for whose welfare the physical geography is being developed. Okay, so this is the nature of physical geography as it has developed these days or in the past. Okay. Now, let us see from our exam point of view what has happened in this physical geography. So, I have told you that in the past, you had to prepare three topics, that is geomorphology, climatology, and oceanography. And once you prepare this, it was sure that you'll get two choice type questions correct. ये 100% था. ठीक है? As a result, the reliance of on these topics have been traditionally very high in the preparation. ठीक है? खास तौर पर if you talk about especially geomorphology and climatology, because almost every year you'll find that in the past there was 60 marker questions from these two topics. So much of the coaching classes times used to go in geomorphology. However, as I told you, after 2009 the pattern changed, and UPSC started to ask lots of questions also from other areas, and that was your biogeography, and if you talk about, that was your environmental geography. एनवायरमेंटल ज्योग्राफी. सो इन सभी से क्वेश्चंस बहुत सारे आने लग गए. ठीक है? इवन इन द अदर एरियाज वी विल सी लाइक geomorphology, many of the questions which hadn't been asked before, the topics which UPSC never used to touch, even from those areas UPSC started to ask questions. In climatology, it even went beyond many of the things, like for example, uh, some of the topics which are never not at all mentioned in the syllabus. Our syllabus, for example, mentions ट्रॉपिकल एंड टेम्परेट साइक्लोन्स. ठीक है? क्लाइमेटोलॉजी का सिलेबस देखो तो ट्रॉपिकल एंड टेम्परेट साइक्लोन्स, बट इन द एग्जामिनेशन दे आस्क्ड थंडरस्टॉर्म फॉर्मेशन. कहीं पर भी नहीं मेंशन है डायरेक्टली सिलेबस में, बट दे एसेंशियली आस्क्ड द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ द थंडरस्टॉर्म. इन आवर सिलेबस इट इज मेंशन्ड टाइप्स एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ प्रेसिपिटेशन. ठीक है? बट उन्होंने क्वेश्चन पूछा द types and forms of humidity pucha. Then they also asked about the forms of condensation puch liya. This year they also asked with respect to the lightning and clouds. ठीक है? So these things are not directly mentioned in the syllabus. but they have started to ask even these concepts. Oceanography has been comparatively, if you talk about, more direct. देखेंगे इसको भी बाद में. But that has been the trends now. Trend. How the questions are coming. ठीक है. अब ऐसे में क्या हो रहा है? Because the teachers tend to be in the inertia of the previous paradigm, they continue to spend most of the time here. ठीक है. And here यही दो टॉपिक्स में पूरा का पूरा फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी का टाइम निकलता है मेजरली, एंड टू सम एक्सटेंट दिस वन. अब देखो स्टूडेंट की प्रॉब्लम क्या है, बिकॉज ही और शी हैज बीन ट्रेन्ड टू स्टडी इन दिस मैनर, दे विल पे लॉट्स ऑफ अटेंशन टू जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी. ठीक है. अब जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी को सपोज करो कि यू आर समवन हु इज प्रिपेयरिंग, यू आर आल्सो प्रिपेयरिंग, सो यू स्पेंट ऑफ योर टोटल ऑप्शनल प्रिपरेशन टाइम, उसमें से तुमने 30% 40% टाइम जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी को ही दे दिया. थिंक करो. When you go into the examination, can we say कि क्वेश्चन आएगा जरूर, जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी का क्वेश्चन इज ऑलवेज देयर. अब आता हो या नहीं आता हो, मॉरल ऑब्लिगेशन है कि वो अटेम्प्ट करना है, बिकॉज यू हैव स्पेंड सो मच ऑफ टाइम. दिस हैज एक्चुअली हैपेंड, दिस इज हैपनिंग विद द स्टूडेंट्स, सो दे विल हैव टू अटेम्प्ट बिकॉज अदर एरियाज छूट गए practically speaking, so you'll be forced to attempt. And what happened? बाकी जो एरिया से बहुत सारे, like I always say कि one very reliable area is this one, climatology. Very reliable area is oceanography. Very reliable area is biogeography. ये तीन टॉपिक्स ऐसे हैं फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी में, दे नेवर चीट यू. ठीक है. जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी बेवफा है. It has happened. I have also spent so much of time in the classes in geomorphology. But UPSC surprises you in geomorphology. This year too, the question which was asked, as I told you, even the simple question of plate tectonics was quite tricky. Very few people will be getting in that 40%, 50% marks. Very few. But again, what will happen next year? The same story, more time to geomorphology, less time to these topics. अब simple सा question आता है, lightning. There was a very simple question on lightning. Or a person who has studied, he or she understands how to write, how lightning is formed, because there is separation of charges within the cumulonimbus clouds. So because of the separation of charges, there is positively charged concentrated in one part, negatively charged concentrated in one part. And thus what happens? Three ways lightning can be caused: intra-cloud lightning, inter-cloud lightning, and cloud ground lightning. Three ways in which lightning can take place. बहुत simple. But the problem is the climatology topic was not prepared well, and thus what happened? The person was forced to attempt questions where he would have lost more marks. ठीक है. So this is basically happening, and if you are going to write in the examination, you have to make sure कि ये नहीं करना है. ये जो love triangle students ने बना रखा है, love triangle क्या है? Students are in love with geomorphology. ठीक है. And these subjects are in love with you, but you don't care. It is true. You will take them very lightly, very lightly. देखो एक चीज होती है, you have to understand. There is difference between कि पढ़ा हुआ है and there is difference between कि consolidated. There will be three type of questions. First category is what I call them as the direct questions होंगे, बहुत सारे होते हैं. There is second category where I call it as the tricky questions. And third is the exceptional questions. Normally the ratio is 40 to 50%, 40 to 50%, and here it is 0 to 20%. The various combinations of these would determine whether the paper is easy or difficult. ठीक है? But generally हर पेपर में always these two will be present. ये दोनों तो होंगे ही होंगे. And these days there are some these categories also. ठीक है? How much marks you will score? ये किस पे डिपेंड करता है? Whether you have got here 50 to 60% and above marks. इसमें अगर आपके इतने स्कोर हो गए, ट्रिकी, here it can anywhere range between 30 to 60%. ठीक है? और इसको नहीं जोड़ा जाता है. It is always there. If you get something 1-2 marks, it is well and good. Otherwise, in general, you will not get. So, it is these areas which will get you selected. अब ये marks लाने के लिए आपको topic should be very, very good ratified. Till you have ratified the topic, you'll not get this much marks. ठीक है? So, generally students की tendency क्या होती है कि एक बार climatology पढ़ लिया, and they'll think कि यार, because it is very logical, we will see, सब कुछ समझने वाला है. So they'll think कि चलो अब तो हम आंसर लिख लेंगे. There is a difference when it comes to answer writing. Answer writing is very much dependent upon your ability to recall and also your practice. So most of the students would do what? They'll take these of topics, other topics very lightly. And again, they will pay for that in the examination. So physical geography में you have to promise me that you are not going to do the same thing. होता है, because geomorphology के concepts, they are, some of the concepts are actually difficult. When we will go into the landform development, ठीक है, we will see that some of the concepts are actually very, very difficult. So हो सकता है कि कुछ चीजें समझ में नहीं आएंगी, बट जो चीजें समझ में नहीं आएंगी उसके लिए हमारे पास ब्रह्मास्त्र है, एंड दैट इज उसको रट्टा मारो और आगे बढ़ो. That is the only way. In fact, if you keep on mugging up, one day you will also understand it. Okay? So that is, you have to keep in mind, you have to give equal weightage to each of these topics. I tend to start with climatology because I feel that it pays off more and it is more interesting also. ठीक है? So this is the nature of physical geography, और हमारा तरीका बिल्कुल सिंपल रहेगा कि we will identify the areas जहां पर easy है. ठीक है? और we will more make ourselves stronger in those easy area, more जहां पर हमारे chances बढ़ते हैं. ठीक है? It is very simple or similar, like suppose तुम्हें एक दीवार जो है, you have to break a wall. ठीक है? If you have to break a wall, will you choose the most strongest point of the wall? वहां पर तोड़ने की कोशिश करोगे, या which was the weakest point of the wall? The weakest point of the wall. So we'll make ourselves more stronger in those areas. और एक चीज हमेशा याद रखना है, in any paper there will be exceptional questions. What is the role of these exceptional questions is, they are kind of psychological trap. ठीक है? If you look into the previous year papers, उठा करके देखना, every year UPSC is what doing, first question is a exceptional question. So जैसे ही उसने first question exceptional question डाला, what happens? Almost 70-80% of the people are out there only. ठीक है? Because first thing, if you see that you don't know, it will have a psychological effect and you will tend to even forget those things which you know. ठीक है? So what they do, very cleverly they eliminate 80% of the population out of the examination just by one question. और 80% उनमें से बात कर रहा हूं जो मेंस लिख रहे थे. जो मेंस नहीं लिख रहे थे वो पहले ही और ज्यादा बाहर हो गए. कैसे हो गए? दे विल सी, ह्यूमन एक टेंडेंसी होती है we are most afraid of the things we know. ठीक है? No, we don't know, sorry. And we are not so much afraid about the things which we have heard of or we know. Now, when we take up the paper, previous year questions जो है उसको उठाया किसी स्टूडेंट ने और उसमें आ गया स्यूडो वॉल्केनिज्म. ठीक है? तो अब उसके दिमाग में आ गया यार स्यूडो वॉल्केनिज्म तो मैंने सुना भी नहीं है, पढ़ा भी नहीं कहीं. व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ दिस स्यूडो वॉल्केनिज्म? ही विल नॉट लुक डाउन एंड सी कि बहुत से क्वेश्चंस थे, इतने सारे, इनफैक्ट 40 to 50% क्वेश्चंस वर डायरेक्ट, जिसमें मेरी औकात नहीं है कि मैं 50% भी पहुंच पाऊं. ठीक है? He will forget that, not getting even 30-40% marks in those direct questions. And he will go in search of, जैसे नेहरू ने लिखी थी ना भारत एक खोज, वैसे ज्योग्राफी एक खोज. And what will happen? He'll keep on searching कि ये सूडो वॉल्केनिज्म कहां से मिल जाए मुझे. और ऐसा हुआ है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल दिस व्हेन दिस टॉपिक वाज आस्क्ड सूडो वॉल्केनिज्म, सो सम स्टूडेंट्स केम टू मी कि सर इसको कहां से पढ़ सकते हैं. मैंने कहा यार इट इज एक्सेप्शनल क्वेश्चन, व्हाई यू हैव टू स्टडी, व्हाई दिस टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आर नेवर प्रिपेयर्ड, दे विल ऑलवेज बी पार्ट ऑफ द पेपर. बट फिर भी सर कहां पे दिया होगा? आई टोल्ड देम कि देयर इज अ बुक थॉर्नबरी, उसमें एक चैप्टर ही है, उससे आया है. ठीक है? अगले दिन वो थॉर्नबरी लेके पहुंच गया कि इसमें टिक कर दो सर कि कौन से चैप्टर्स पढ़ने. दिस इज व्हाट वी डोंट हैव टू डू. We have to understand these are to just divert you from the main goal. Because a person when understand that this is the key, then the process becomes very easy for him or her. ठीक है? These questions what they do, they divert you. They'll just tend to divert you. And they'll not let you focus upon this. So वो भूल जाओ, हर पेपर में होगा. There was pseudo volcanism question, but still people got 327 marks. And they wouldn't have even got 2 marks in what they had written. फिर भी marks आए. So very clearly those questions doesn't affect your marks. ठीक है? So हमें अगर इस point of view से देखें, ये जो हमने pattern बनाया है, तो जो सबसे ज्यादा बिल्कुल सटीक हमें मिलने वाले हैं, जिसमें डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चंस क्लाइमेटोलॉजी में मिलेंगे, ओशनोग्राफी में मिलेंगे एंड बायोजोग्राफी में मिलेंगे. दीज विल बी द 3 areas where you'll get maximum number of the direct questions. ठीक है? And again accordingly we will be preparing them. So what we are going to do now, we'll be starting with our first topic, climatology. As we start with each of the topic, I will explain the details of each of the topics. So for example, next topic that will be starting would be geomorphology. So we will see, we will start with the details of what geomorphology is, how it should be studied. तो वहां पर geomorphology के बारे में बताऊंगा. Same thing climate, same thing oceanography, same thing biogeography. Likewise, we will be essentially doing. ठीक है? So we are now going to start with the first topic, that is climatology. Any other query before I start? किसी को कुछ पूछना है? I have already told you the source book you should have, and the source book is the Savendra Singh physical geography book. तो अगर book लेना है तो you should have that book with you. And as I have told you, it is a compulsory from my side, because later in geomorphology I will give also some homework. ठीक है? Okay, so now let us start with the topic of climatology. So देखो, how to prepare climatology and how to make sure that we get all the questions right. Okay, we are able to predict most of the questions. Climatology, if you look into the previous year questions, how they have been asked, it requires a more traditional approach of preparation. And what is the traditional approach of preparation? More bookish approach of preparation. जैसे बुक में दिया होता है उस तरह से प्रिपेयर करना है. अब मैं इसको एग्जाम्पल एलैबोरेट करता हूं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, जो अभी 2 एग्जाम्पल लिए थे उसको देखते हैं. हमारे सिलेबस में द टॉपिक विच इज मेंशन्ड इज temperate and tropical cyclones. ठीक है, this is the topic which is mentioned in the syllabus, but this you will not find as a separate chapter in the book. In the books there will be a chapter by the name of atmospheric disturbances. Atmospheric disturbances, ठीक है, and in these atmospheric disturbances you will be finding that there will be this tropical and temperate cyclones. It will be part of this atmospheric disturbances. Then it will also mention some lower order disturbances. Like for example, one common lower order disturbance is the thunderstorms. It will also mention some other lower order disturbances, like one of the lower order disturbance will be tornadoes. टोर्नाडोज एंड इसके साथ एक और होता है वाटर स्पाउट्स. ठीक है, अब यूपीएससी ने प्रीवियस ईयर में इसको पूछ लिया है, विच वॉज नॉट मेंशन. ठीक है, टेल मी, does it means that in future there is chance they will ask this, or as a short note even water spouts पूछ सकता है? डेफिनेटली पूछ सकता है. सो यू हैव टू बी रेडी. बट अगर मैं बुकिश अप्रोच लेकर के नहीं चलता हूं, देन व्हाट विल हैपन, दीज डिटेल्स आई विल नॉट बी स्टडिंग. देन व्हाट विल हैपन, मैंने केवल क्या पढ़ा, हमने सिंपली देखा ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन, टेम्परेट साइक्लोन. सो जस्ट वन पार्ट ऑफ एटमॉस्फेरिक डिस्टर्बेंस वाज प्रिपेयर्ड, बट यूपीएससी इज गोइंग बियॉन्ड व्हाट इज मेंशन्ड इन द सिलेबस डायरेक्टली. सिमिलरली दूसरा एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं. हमारे सिलेबस में मेंशन्ड है टाइप्स एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन of precipitation. This is the topic which is mentioned in the syllabus. If I go into the book, it will be just a subtopic of a chapter which will be humidity, condensation and precipitation. Humidity, condensation and precipitation. ठीक है, so इसमें there will be a subsection of humidity and its types, humidity and its types. There will be a subsection of dew point and condensation. There will be a subsection of forms of condensation. फॉर्म्स ऑफ कंडेंसेशन पर होगा. फॉर्म्स ऑफ कंडेंसेशन में दो फॉर्म ऑफ कंडेंसेशन को डिटेल में भी दिया होता है. विच आर दोस? वन इज क्लाउड्स एंड द अदर इज फॉग्स. ठीक है, सिमिलरली आफ्टर दिस देयर विल बी द प्रोसेस ऑफ प्रेसिपिटेशन. प्रोसेस ऑफ प्रेसिपिटेशन, in fact इसमें भी there is actually forms of precipitation. There is process के अलावा then comes the types and the distribution of precipitation. ठीक है, अब अगर मैं प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस में चाहूं तो they have asked humidity, its types and forms. The question has been already asked. ठीक है, they have asked about the forms of condensation. And every year I was repeating that you have to study this. Means agar if they have asked forms of condensation, if the book is mentioning these clouds, fogs in detail, You have to prepare the clouds properly. This year they also asked question from the clouds, the lightning question. ठीक है? I am 100% sure, like dew point condensation लोगों ने पढ़ा है. You know, many of you also already know what is dew point and condensation. अभी मैं एक क्वेश्चन बना दूं, टाइप्स ऑफ कंडेंसेशन. ठीक है? 99% of the geography optional students, they will not be able to get even 40% of marks in this question. Types of condensation. Because types of condensation can happen in basically, if you know, two ways. One is where the temperature reduces, ठीक है, due to reduction in temperature. But tell me, can condensation also occur because of saturation by addition of moisture? ठीक है, उससे भी हो सकता है, लेकिन वहां पर यह चीज याद नहीं आएगी. Because why? Because you didn't prepare. So what we have to do, we have to be prepared for these topics beforehand only. Then what will happen? Our chances of doing good in the examination would increase. Then only we'll be able to achieve 50 to 60% of marks in the examination. So climatology को तैयार करने का बेस्ट तरीका क्या है? I take the book. बुक में जो इंडेक्स पेज होता है उसमें टॉपिक्स और उसके सब टॉपिक्स दिए होते हैं सभी. ठीक है? So if I prepare also on each of the subtopics, definitely what will happen, I will be in a position to answer most of the questions from the topic of climatology. ठीक है? So that is the way we will be following climatology. So if I talk about climatology, I divide climatology into three parts. ठीक है? There are three type of topics mentioned in the syllabus of climatology according to me. So first, if you talk about, is what I call it as the basic climatology. Basic climatology. Second, if you talk about, is the advanced climatology. And third is also applied climatology. So basic climatology, advanced climatology, and applied climatology. So what are the topics that we will be studying in under first the basic climatology? Remember, the basic climatology is what? It is the foundation of climatology. ठीक है? So जिसने ये टॉपिक्स मिस कर दिए, जिसने ये क्लासेस मिस कर दी, उसका क्लाइमेटोलॉजी में डब्बा गोल, उसको कभी क्लाइमेटोलॉजी समझ में नहीं आने वाली. Because the most easy things, it they will look कि we are just studying insolation, we are just studying temperature. But everything starts from insolation and temperature. As a student, I learned one thing: the most basic concepts will solve you the most complicated problems. Like we will see, the most basic principle of climatology is that atmosphere is mainly heated from below. Now, if you just remember this simple concept, you'll see that understanding of the topics of climatology becomes how much easier just by remembering this principle that atmosphere is mainly heated from below. ठीक है? So that is the significance of basic climatology. So basic climatology में we will be starting with some basic topics. One topic which is mentioned in the syllabus is the weather and climate. So this will be the first topic we are going to start with, and देखेंगे कि इसका कितना ज्यादा significance है इस topic का, although has never been asked in the examination because of being very easy maybe. So weather and climate. Then we'll talk with respect to some general topics which are not mentioned directly in the syllabus. Some general basic topics like the formation of atmosphere or origin of atmosphere. Others like the composition of atmosphere. Then if you talk about uh, structure of atmosphere, so all these some general topics will be the next set of topics which we will be discussing. अब इसमें भी देखो, for example, all of you would have studied structure of atmosphere. एनसीईआरटी में पढ़ा है. There is troposphere, there is stratosphere, there is mesosphere, there is thermosphere above that. ठीक है. So सबने पढ़ा है. लेकिन अभी मैं क्वेश्चन पूछ दूं कि examine the vertical belts of temperature in the atmosphere. Again 90% of the people won't be able to write just because वो basic नहीं पता था कि this classification which we are doing, that is the troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, it is on the basis of temperature distribution. ठीक है. और उसमें भी कुछ एनरिचमेंट, एडवांस एनरिचमेंट जो करना चाहिए वो नहीं कर पाए बिकॉज उस तरह से प्रिपेयर नहीं किया था. सपोज मुझे अगर लिखना होगा इसी को वर्टिकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ टेम्परेचर, कैन आई से नॉर्मली इफ यू गो अप, बिकॉज atmosphere is mainly heated from below, if you go up normally the temperature should decline. ऐसा होना चाहिए. Lapse rate should be the normal thing within the atmosphere. But are we finding in stratosphere temperature increases with height? Do we find in the thermosphere temperature increases with height? Yes, we do find that. So can I say these two belts are the belts of inversion of temperature? So उसी को मैंने इतना enrich कर दिया just on the basis of the concepts I know, just because I actually thought about it as a writing as an answer. ठीक है. So that is basically one general topic. Then we'll start with the main topics. Although the topic insolation is not mentioned in the syllabus, but there is related topic which is mentioned, that is heat budget. ठीक है. So insolation and heat budget. But if you look into the previous year questions, they have asked you a question, what is difference between insolation and temperature? Okay, this question has been asked, and explain the concept of anomalous temperatures. This was the question which was asked. So insolation and heat budget. And as I told you, it starts, climatology basically starts from here. जिसने इंसुलेशन का टॉपिक मिस किया समझ में नहीं आएगा कभी. देन द सिलेबस मेंशंस टेम्परेचर बेल्ट्स, टेम्परेचर बेल्ट्स. सो जैसा कि मैंने बताया, इट अवर सिलेबस ओनली मेंशंस टेम्परेचर बेल्ट्स. आई हैव टू थिंक फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ हॉरिजॉन्टल बेल्ट्स ऑफ टेम्परेचर, and the vertical belts of temperature can also be found. ठीक है. When I am talking about the vertical belt of temperature, the idea of inversion of temperature becomes part and parcel of the study. ठीक है. So within temperature belt हमें बहुत सारे छोटे छोटे टॉपिक्स पढ़ने हैं. मेन जो कंसेप्ट होगा, temperature distribution we'll talk about, and we will be talking about the inversion of temperature as well. ठीक है. Now temperature is one factor. Then there is mention of pressure belts. ठीक है. So मेरे हिसाब से I treat it as one section. Till this insulation and temperature as one section. So एक बार insulation and temperature समझ में आ गया, then you can move on to the next level, that is the pressure belts. And we will see that normally in our mind, temperature is the primary factor of which controls pressure. Yes or no? It is the primary factor. But we will later see that not only temperature but mechanical factors are also very, very important. If it was temperature, then the low pressure shouldn't be found at the equator, it should have been found in the tropics. where the temperatures are actually high. ठीक है? So again, we will see that it is more complicated than just being simple function of temperature. So pressure belts, and if you talk about within this, associated with this is the winds. ठीक है? The winds. Syllabus में there are three types of winds which are mentioned in our syllabus. One wind which is mentioned is the planetary winds. Planetary winds. ठीक है? Other wind which is mentioned is monsoons. So tell me, can I say monsoons is a regional wind? ठीक है? It is essentially a regional wind system. So the second type of wind system which is mentioned is the regional wind system. If you talk about the third type which is mentioned is the local winds. ठीक है? One more type of wind system is mentioned in the syllabus, which is actually a planetary winds. ठीक है? Planetary winds can be of two type, one which are blowing on the surface, others which are blowing in the upper atmosphere. ठीक है? So that is actually part of your advanced climatology, which we are calling it as the jet streams. The jet streams. ठीक है? So there is the concept of local winds. So here again, one aspect of our basic climatology is completed. So one is the heating related phenomena, other is the pressure related phenomena and wind related phenomena, and then there will be the next one. अभी बताता हूं. अब देखो, syllabus में mention है pressure belts, there is planetary winds, monsoon, local winds. This is mentioned in the syllabus. But they asked a question, forces governing movement of winds on the earth's surface. ठीक है? अब ये बहुत सिंपल सा क्वेश्चन था. There are, when we'll study, we will see there are few important forces. Most important is the pressure gradient force, which generates the winds. Then once winds are generated, Coriolis force comes into play. There is frictional force, and in circular motion systems, when the isobars are circular, then there is also centrifugal forces in play. So these are the main four forces जो लिखनी थी. अब ये क्वेश्चन देखने में आसान था, बाकी क्वेश्चंस डिफिकल्ट थे. So most of the students were forced to attempt this question. And out of 10 people who talked with me, अगर 10 लोगों ने मुझसे बात किया, तो there was only one person who had written on these lines. ठीक है? There was no person who had written all the four factors. Only one person who had written three factors. ठीक है? 9 people had written unnecessary things like insolation, temperature, etc., factors affecting the distribution of winds. Remember, they are also affecting, but they are indirectly affecting through these four factors. So the answer should have been these four factors. ठीक है? So that is the thing. In between, we will see more small concepts where the questions can be asked. Then another in basic climatology, another part is where we will enter into the domain of humidity and precipitation. ठीक है? So as I told you, syllabus में जो topics mentioned है, there is just 2 topics mentioned in the syllabus, and one of these topics, if you talk about, it is types and distribution of precipitation. Types and distribution of precipitation. But अभी हमने देखा था that our topic is beyond this, and as we had seen, within this topic so many subtopics will be essentially covered. So ये सभी topics उसके अंदर में we will be covering. but our syllabus essentially mentions types and distribution of precipitation. Okay, so this is the syllabus of basic climatology which is mentioned in the syllabus. Okay, then if you talk about advanced climatology, there are some topics mentioned, like for example, one topic mentioned is jet streams. There is other topic which is mentioned is stability and instability in the atmosphere. So this is also a kind of advanced climatology topic. We will see it is very important to understand the major processes which are taking place in the atmosphere. So stability, instability concept. Then if you talk about others like hydrological cycle, hydrological cycle. So again, it is a more advanced climatology topic. Other, if you talk about which is mentioned in the syllabus is air masses, air masses and fronts. So we will see that till in the basic climatology, we will see that we will treat mostly air mostly as two dimensional. But in reality, we will see that air is actually three dimensional and it is mostly air masses or the parcel of air where the air will have length, breadth as well as height. Okay? So that is basically the air masses concept. So air masses fronts and then definitely the temperate and tropical cyclones. Tropical cyclones. So that is also one part of advanced climatology which I treat it as. Then one more part of advanced climatology will be the topic of climatic classification. Climatic classification. अब देखो क्लाइमेटिक क्लासिफिकेशन की जब बात करते हैं तो सिलेबस में यू विल सी मेनी प्लेसेस देयर इज exclusivity and there is inclusivity in the defining of the syllabus. ठीक है, सो यहां पर एक्सक्लूसिव कर दिया यूपीएससी ने विच क्लाइमेटिक क्लासिफिकेशंस यू हैव टू स्टडी. सो वी हैव टू एक्सक्लूसिवली स्टडी कोपेन classification, we have to study Thorn's weight classification, and third one which was added in 2008, that is Trivartha. उससे पहले त्रिवार्ता का क्लासिफिकेशन नहीं था सिलेबस में. तो दिस इज द रीजन यू विल फाइंड कभी पूछा ही नहीं गया. बट 2008 में ऐड हुआ. आई थिंक एक दो साल पहले त्रिवार्थास क्लासिफिकेशन वाज अगेन आस्क्ड. ठीक है, सो हियर द सिलेबस इज वेरी एक्सक्लूसिव. सो दैट इज one aspect of advanced climatology. So these are the topics which are there in advanced climatology. Then there is the third part of the syllabus, that is applied climatology. So applied climatology में देखो अप्लाइड क्लाइमेटोलॉजी जो अप्लाइड सब्जेक्ट्स होते हैं उनकी दो ब्रांचेस होती हैं. ठीक है, अप्लाइड फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी में देयर आर टू ब्रांचेस. वन ब्रांच इज where we try to understand or use the knowledge to benefit of the society. So that is one part of applied physical geography. Second part, what we do, we try to study human as an agent of change. ठीक है, सो हमेशा अप्लाइड फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी की दो ब्रांचेस होती हैं. तो यहां पर भी वी विल सी द सेम थिंग. देयर आर टू मेन ब्रांचेस ऑफ अप्लाइड क्लाइमेटोलॉजी where first one topic mentions the role of humans in क्लाइमेट चेंज, आई थिंक ग्लोबल वार्मिंग मेंशन है सिलेबस में। क्या सिलेबस में क्या मेंशन है? Actually, role and response we mentioned. This is what I was asking. Role and response of humans in global climatic changes. ठीक है? So again, what is the role of the human beings? How here human has become the agent of change. ठीक है? And second very important topic which is mentioned is अलग से ही mention है applied climatology, and within applied climatology they have specifically mentioned one topic, that is urban climates. Urban climates. ठीक है, सो देखेंगे what are the scopes of applied climatology, and because here also they seem to have made the syllabus exclusive. सीधा सीधा लिखा हुआ है कि you have to study urban climates. Otherwise you can understand कि आज के टाइम में applied subjects have become sub disciplines in themselves, so there's so much vast scope, so उसमें वो बहुत बड़ा हो जाएगा, इसीलिए probably यूपीएससी ने clearly mention कर दिया है they will be asking urban climates, and you see they haven't asked beyond this, they have asked about the urban climates only. ठीक है, so this is the syllabus of our climatology and this is how we have to prepare it. ठीक है, I hope it is clear. आगे बढ़ते हैं. So let us talk about the first topic, that is weather and climate. Weather and climate. And I'll give you 2 minutes. Think. Suppose if you have to find differences between, what could be the difference between weather and climate? So take 2 minutes and think. Suppose if you have to write a short note. Question is differentiate between weather and climate. Differentiate between weather and climate. और जब मैं ये 2 मिनट देता हूं उसको सीरियसली यूज करो. एग्जामिनेशन में यही जो प्रैक्टिस है यही काम आती है. नो बडी एल्स इज गोइंग टू हेल्प यू आउट. दिस इज अ प्रैक्टिस, वी आर प्रैक्टिस मेकिंग आवर ब्रेन एक्टिव, उसको काम करना सिखा रहे हैं. सो इवन इफ यू डोंट नो एनीथिंग, जस्ट फोर्सफुली थिंक क्या लिख सकते हैं. एंड व्हेन यू आर थिंकिंग यू ऑल्सो हैव टू कीप ऑन जॉटिंग डाउन, जिसको हम कहते हैं ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग. ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग करो. ओके, सो आई नो यू वुड हैव थॉट नंबर ऑफ थिंग्स. देखते हैं, अब हमें एक एक करके देखने की कोशिश करते हैं. यू चेक योर सेल्फ वेयर यू आर. सो suppose I have to differentiate between weather and climate. It is very important first of all to differentiate between weather and climate, understand the scope of what we are going to study here. ठीक है. So first of all, can I say, if I suppose have to differentiate between these, I can use a chart. और अब जो है जब चार्ट्स बनाते हो, चेंज योर हैबिट, ऑलवेज मेक 3 कॉलम्स. ठीक है, 2 कॉलम वाला चार्ट बंद. सो हियर देयर इज क्राइटेरिया ऑफ डिफरेंस, and definitely we can talk about weather and climate. ठीक है. So tell me, can we say one criteria of difference can be the definition, what they are, what they represent? So what is weather essentially? What is weather? Can we say weather refers to the conditions of the atmosphere at a particular place at a particular time? So, what is weather? It simply refers to the conditions of the atmosphere at a particular place at a particular time. Particular time. ठीक है. And in general, ये पर्टिकुलर टाइम को हम ये भी कह सकते हैं इन शॉर्ट टाइम पीरियड. इन शॉर्ट टाइम पीरियड. ठीक है. जनरली स्पीकिंग ये शॉर्ट टाइम पीरियड क्या होता है? दिस शॉर्ट टाइम पीरियड कैन रेंज फ्रॉम, व्हेन दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट वेदर, इट कैन रेंज फ्रॉम few hours to few days. ठीक है. इट कैन रेंज फ्रॉम few hours to few days. देखा होगा IMD gives the predictions of weather. So वो कुछ डेज का आगे का प्रिडिक्शन देता है. इट कैन रेंज बिटवीन 3 to 5 days predictions. So that is what we essentially mean by the term weather. On the other hand, what is climate? We can simply say it is what? It is long term average. Average or mean of the weather conditions of a place. लॉन्ग टर्म एवरेज और द मीन. अब जो ये लॉन्ग टर्म एवरेज और द मीन की बात करें तो द एक्सेप्टेड टाइम पीरियड, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट ग्लोबली, इट इज 35 years. ठीक है. 35 years is the accepted time period. Now here there is one problem coming to my mind. If I use this definition as simple, there is one issue that comes to my mind. और इस issue को मैं समझाने की कोशिश करता हूं. So suppose there is, we are talking about two type of climates: tropical rainforest climate and monsoon climate. There is also एक और ले लेते हैं savanna climates. ठीक है. Now if I take one parameter, suppose I am taking a parameter of temperature. ठीक है. Average annual temperature. So what is the average annual temperature in tropical rainforest? 27 degrees Celsius. What is in monsoon? 27 degrees Celsius. फिर हम इसको अलग अलग क्लाइमेट क्यों बोल रहे हैं? Remember one thing, averages can be misleading. ठीक है? Averages can be misleading. Averages just give you an idea. ठीक है? For example, if you talk about tropical rainforest, you will be finding यहाँ पर the annual range of temperature, that means variation between the coldest month temperature and the warmest month temperature doesn't goes beyond 2 to 5 degrees Celsius. इससे ज्यादा वेरिएशन होता ही नहीं है. That is why here there is hardly any winters which are found. On the other hand, in monsoon, you'll find that this variation can increase from 7 to 11 degree Celsius. ठीक है? If you talk about savanna, it can be even, this variation can go up to 13 degree Celsius because it is more interior type of climate. So, again, अब temperature के ही terms में difference दिख रहा है. Was the average misleading? It was misleading. It was giving us wrong impression. ठीक है? Take the same thing. For example, in tropical rainforests, you'll find that the precipitation is over 250 centimeter. ठीक है? In some areas of monsoon, like the western slopes of Western Ghats, you'll again find that the average precipitation is 250 centimeter. ठीक है? But if you look into the distribution of precipitation in tropical rainforest, there is no month in which the precipitation will be less than 6 centimeter. ठीक है? कम से कम हर month में 6 centimeter precipitation होगी. In fact, if you are aware, you must have heard about the late afternoon rainfall. So tropical rainforest में क्या होता है? हर रोज late afternoon में there is rainfall taking place. ठीक है? मॉनसून में क्या होता है? 70 to 80% of the precipitation is falling in just 4 monsoon months. ठीक है? इंडिया के टर्म्स में ये 4 monsoon months हैं, जून, जुलाई, अगस्त एंड सितंबर. ठीक है? So, was the average misleading? Obviously, it will be misleading. ठीक है? And if you talk about, can I say, in monsoon, will there be a period of drought also? Will there be a period of dryness? Obviously, there will be. ठीक है? So, averages can be clearly misleading. So, today, when we are talking about the definition of climate, we have to write that it also includes the variations or the study of variations and extremes of weather phenomena. ठीक है? So it is also taking into account the variation. So climate में हम दोनों चीजों को देखेंगे. हमेशा averages भी देखते हैं and we also take into account the variations. ठीक है? जब हम बाद में पढ़ेंगे climatic types, अब देखो ये समझना बहुत जरूरी है. When we later study the climatic types, if you read the books, ठीक है, एज अ स्टूडेंट मैं अपने लिए नोट्स बना रहा था. ठीक है? ताकि मैं उसको यूज कर पाऊं एग्जाम में. एंड आई वाज रीडिंग, मेरे पास 2-3 बुक्स थी, सबसे मैंने ढूंढने की कोशिश की. एंड व्हाट आई फाउंड, दे विल मेंशन ट्रॉपिक्स में, व्हेन वी आर इन ट्रॉपिकल क्लाइमेट्स, दे विल मेंशन द एवरेज टेम्परेचर्स. वहां पर उसको मेंशन करेंगे, एवरेज एनुअल टेम्परेचर. जैसे ही आप ट्रॉपिक्स से बाहर निकलते हो, सब ट्रॉपिक्स में, टेम्परेट में, they are not there mentioning, the books are not mentioning average annual temperature. There they are mentioning what is the winter temperature and the summer temperature. Why? Because when you are going outside the tropics, averages doesn't make any sense, because there is huge variation in what is the winter temperature and what is essentially the summer temperature. ठीक है. So as a student मेरे को बिल्कुल ये समझ में नहीं आता था, मुझे लगता था कि ये बुक बेकार है, काम की नहीं है. ठीक है. Later I understood, when I understood the concepts basically properly, then I understood कि यार इसलिए ऐसा हुआ है, because there the average doesn't makes any sense. ठीक है. So that is the basic definition. Then what else we can talk about the difference being? Tell me. Hmm? ठीक है, बहुत सारे हैं. एक अगर हम बात कर सकते हैं, क्राइटेरिया हो सकता है चेंजेबिलिटी, और फिर या फिर वेरिएशंस. So tell me, when it comes to weather, can I say weather is highly dynamic and changeable? Weather is essentially highly dynamic and changeable. ठीक है. Because it is essentially occurring in the short term, so it is highly dynamic and changeable. So suddenly here we are sitting, हो सकता है अचानक से बाहर बारिश होने लगे. So that is basically what that is weather. ठीक है. So it is highly dynamic and changeable. What about climate? Hmm? Climates are known to change but in longer periods of time. ठीक है. You must have heard about, अभी हमने यूज किया था climate change. ठीक है. So climates are known to change but in long periods of time. ठीक है. सो बाद में जब क्लाइमेट चेंज पढ़ेंगे तो देखेंगे आईपीसीसी गिव्स variety of type of climatic changes. Like for example, there is, we talk about decadal changes in climate which can take place. Then there are, if you talk about 30 year, 3 decades climatic changes are there. Then this period keeps on increasing. ठीक है. So that is one aspect. Then parameters of study. Parameters of study. So tell me, when we are talking about weather, we are more concerned about which parameters? Can I say we are more concerned about parameters like diurnal range of temperature or daily temperature? ठीक है. So parameters like diurnal temperature and range of it. Others parameters like the daily precipitation, ठीक है, और daily humidity value. Definitely wind, speed and direction, or velocity and direction. So all these are the various type of parameters which we are studying. ठीक है. But when we are concerned with, when we are studying weather, what type of parameters we focus upon? Can I say temperature का example लें तो average annual temperature, annual range of temperature, such type of parameters we are focused upon. So average annual temperature, annual range of temperature. You know what is annual range of temperature? It is the difference between the maximum mean monthly minus minimum mean monthly temperature. So that is annual range of temperature. Similarly, there is annual average precipitation, seasonal variability in precipitation. ठीक है? So that is one difference. Other difference, uh, relation with relationship with vegetation. So relationship with vegetation. So tell me, what is the relationship of weather with vegetation? Hmm? We can say that there is hardly any relationship between weather and vegetation. So there is hardly any relation. Hardly any relation. For example, simple सी एक example लेते हैं. We will see that in deserts, the precipitation is very occasional. It is very, very occasional, but torrential. ठीक है? So torrential rainfall will occur in the deserts. So suppose करो कि desert में torrential rainfall हो गया. Does it means कि वहां पे forest उग जाएगा? Definitely not. ठीक है? So there is hardly any relationship between the weather and the vegetation. But if we talk about climate, vegetation is said to be reflection of the climatic type. So vegetation is said to be the manifestation of climate. Manifestation of the climate. There is so much relationship between these that if we overlap the maps, superimpose the maps, the boundary of the vegetation types and the climatic types would almost match. ठीक है? There's so much relationship that Köppen, while formulating his climatic classification, essentially used vegetation boundaries as the climatic boundaries. ठीक है? So there is very clear-cut relationship between vegetation and the climate. Then, hmm, geography of a place, matlab, you want to take it as a criteria. Yes, we are coming to that. ठीक है? So that is one. Then applicability. Applicability के point of view से बताओ. So tell me, applicability के point of view से, can I say the applicability of weather or usefulness of weather is more for a meteorologist? ठीक है? So it is more for a meteorologist. यहाँ पे applicability के बजाय utility लिख देते हैं. On the other hand, if you talk about climatology, it is more for geographers. And you know, geographers are the generalists. The generalists. So there is more applicability with respect to the geographers. So relationship with a place. If you talk about place, so what is the relationship of weather and a place? Will there be relationship of a weather and place? Limited. Limited relationship would be there. So here it will be limited. But when it comes to climate, can we say cultures are essentially reflections of the climate? of the climate. ठीक है, so these are the basic difference between weather and climate. अब देखो यहां पर हमने मेरे ख्याल से 110 वर्ड्स यूज किए होंगे. ठीक है, सपोज मुझे यही चीज लिखनी होती एज अ 15 मार्कर, 200 वर्ड यूज करना है. अब क्या करूंगा? Yes, very good. What we will be giving is we'll be explaining more, we will be giving more examples. In this, अभी मैंने तुमको बहुत सारे examples दिए. You can write those examples and essentially you can expand at will. ठीक है? So remember, यूपीएससी में जो सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम होती है, it is not a person who is well read. For that person, it is not about the expansion of the content. The main problem is related with what? It is related with the writing it precisely in so much less number of words. यही सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज होगा which you will be facing. ठीक है, so that is the role of understanding of this weather and climate. अब देखो एक बात यहां पर बहुत क्लियर समझ लेते हैं. We are going to study what? Climatology. ठीक है, we are going to study climatology. That means हम क्या पढ़ने जा रहे हैं? Are we going to study averages? Yes or no? We are going to study averages. इसका मतलब कहीं कहीं पर बहुत सारी, इनफैक्ट मेजॉरिटी ऑफ प्लेसेस में रियल वर्ल्ड फिनोमेना कैन बी एक्चुअली डिफरेंट, बट बिकॉज वी आर स्टडिंग एवरेजेस इट इज एप्लीकेबल व्हाट वी आर स्टडिंग. ठीक है, एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल देता हूं. एज अ स्टूडेंट व्हेन आई वाज प्रिपेयरिंग, व्हाट आई फाउंड कि मैंने एटलस का मैप उठाया. यू नो, एटलस में देयर आर थीमेटिक मैप्स गिवन. सो उसमें क्लाइमेटिक मैप होता है, तो इंडिया का मैंने क्लाइमेटिक मैप उठाया एंड आई फाउंड इन द पीरियड विच इज गिवन एज साउथ वेस्ट मॉनसून, you will be finding that wind direction is also from east, wind direction is also coming from north. ठीक है, I was so much confused कि ये तो साउथ वेस्ट मॉनसून सीजन है, देन ये डायरेक्शन ऑफ विंड्स ऐसे कैसे चेंज हो सकता है? इट शुड बी साउथ वेस्ट मॉनसून, साउथ वेस्टर्ली. ठीक है, ultimately if you apply that we are studying averages, ठीक है, then it is justified that we call it as the southwest monsoon season, because the average direction of the wind is what? It is southwesterly. There might be here and there variations, but overall average direction of the winds is southwesterly. ठीक है, सो दैट इज बेसिकली द कंसेप्शन ऑफ क्लाइमेट. तो यहां पर कहने का मतलब है कि देयर विल बी मेनी टाइम्स व्हेन यू विल फाइंड सम काइंड ऑफ डाइकोटोमी कि जो हमने पढ़ा है बुक में, इट इज एक्चुअली नॉट एप्लीकेबल टू द रियल सिनेरियो. So why? Because when you are looking into the real scenario, it might be actually meteorology, it might be weather, and here we are more concerned about the study of climate, which is the average. ठीक है, so that is the case of difference between weather and climate. Then moving on, now coming to those general topics. So first is we are going to talk about the origin of atmosphere. Origin of the atmosphere. Now, the question that how atmosphere has originated, it has definitely there is lots of curiosity with respect to our atmosphere, because you know Earth is a very very unique planet. When the scientists first time went into the space, they were surprised. In 1940s 50s, they were surprised to see the Earth from space because it actually appears blue. There's no other planet which appears like the Earth does. So very clearly, there is lots of curiosity in how this type of planet has originated. And you can understand that it is because of the atmosphere that we are alive. Otherwise, we wouldn't be, the life wouldn't be possible on the earth. So the question arises, a very curious question, how atmosphere would have its origin. Now, lots of research has been done in it, and scientists have reached to conclusion that the present atmosphere that we are having, this atmosphere is essentially the tertiary atmosphere. It is the tertiary atmosphere. The present atmosphere is the tertiary atmosphere. That means before this, there were two more atmosphere present on the Earth's surface. Okay? So that means there was also primary atmosphere. So if we talk about the primary atmosphere, an idea of primary atmosphere can be gained from study of some of the planets of our solar system like Jupiter and Saturn. Okay? If we study them, we will be finding that they are filled with several poisonous gases like methane. Okay? So scientists believe that our atmosphere, the first atmosphere, was also very, very similar to such type of atmosphere. So the primary atmosphere was full of poisonous gases like methane. Now the question arises, what happened to this atmosphere? So scientists believe that it escaped into space. So our first atmosphere escaped into space. अब ये कैसे हो सकता है? So there is an actually explanation for this. So our first atmosphere was formed with the origin of our Earth, which is our planet Earth. Okay? So in the initial phase, Earth would have been very, very hot. The surface of the Earth would have been very hot. So one factor, very hot surface of the Earth. After the evolution, after the development of Earth, initial stages, it would have been very hot. First thing. Second thing, our Earth is also, there are two type of, we classify planets into two categories, the inner planets and the outer planets. So the inner planets, if you look into what is their size, they are smaller. Okay? So combine it with Earth is essentially what? It is an inner planet. That is, it is smaller in size. Smaller in size. Okay? So if something is smaller in size, what is the gravitational pull of that object? It will be less. Okay? So Earth also has lower gravitational pull. The ones which are very large, like Jupiter, Saturn, their gravitational pull is very strong. So still the original atmosphere is present there. So what has happened? Because of these two factors, because originally it was also very hot, the gravitational pull is smaller. So our original atmosphere got that escape velocity to escape into the space. So that led to it getting the escape velocity to escape in space. So in this manner, it escaped into space. Now the question arises, then what happened with our secondary atmosphere? So how come secondary atmosphere came into being? Secondary atmosphere. Now scientists believe that secondary atmosphere is outcome of a phenomena which is essentially referred to as degassing. Degassing. So it is outcome of the phenomena of degassing. Okay. So some scientists earlier thought about that probably atmosphere would have come from some meteorite hitting the earth's surface, but ultimately it is not so. When it was observed, the volcanoes were observed, it was found that volcanoes emit gases. Okay. So earth would have also emitted lots of gases from inside that would have led to the formation of the secondary atmosphere. Okay. So it was outcome of the process of degassing. Now the question arises, for example, many samples around the world of volcanoes have been taken. So the question arises, for example, one example is of Hawaiian. So when the samples in Hawaiian were taken of the gases coming out, it was found that water vapor constitutes around 70% of the total gases. Then if you talk about carbon dioxide is around 15%. ठीक है? If you talk about hydrogen, if you talk about is around 5%. Some other gases like sulfur dioxide is around 5%. And there are several other noble gases which are coming out. Okay? So there are several noble gases which are coming out. In this, one thing is clear. If you talk about, sorry, hydrogen लिखा है मैंने, ये nitrogen होगा, correct कर लो. Nitrogen is third, and can you see there is no oxygen? Hardly oxygen is coming out. Even if it is coming out, it is in traces. Okay? So again, the question arises, what changed our secondary atmosphere to the present atmosphere? Okay? So if we look into our present atmosphere, the tertiary atmosphere, we find that the most important gas is nitrogen, which is around how much? 78.08% is nitrogen. Second, if you talk about is oxygen, which is little less than, if you talk about 21%, it is 20 point something percent. Okay? Third, if you talk about is argon, and then if you talk about is carbon dioxide. Okay? So again, very clearly you can see that very clearly what we are saying, that almost 90%, 99%, sorry, is made up of what? It is the primary gases of nitrogen and oxygen. But degassing mein to nitrogen was just 5%, and more important were carbon dioxide and other gases. Okay? So what happened? How it changed? So there is a explanation for this also. It is believed that when the earth was formed, what would have happened? It would have been a hot molten ball. Okay? A hot molten ball. Now, if it is a hot molten ball, tell me from where it will lose maximum heat. Can we say on the surface? It would lose maximum heat from the surface. So with this, what would have happened? There would have been formation of a crust. There would have been solidification of this molten material, leading to formation of a thin crust. So you know this molten material, we call it as magma. So when magma solidifies, what is formed? There is formation of rocks. We call it as the igneous rocks. So such crust formed from igneous rocks would have been formed. Now very important property of rocks which you must have studied is that rocks are poor conductor of heat. Okay? So they are poor conductor of heat. This means that once the crust was formed, can I say lots of heat was trapped inside the earth? There was lots of heat trapped inside the earth. In fact, we will later see that there are processes which are working inside the earth which are also generating lots of heat. Like we will see one process later, the process of density differentiation. We'll see the process of decay of radioactive minerals. All these processes, what they're doing, they're adding lots of further heat into the earth. Now, anything which is hot, can I say it would always try to cool itself down? So, what would have happened? One way earth could have cooled itself down was that if suppose there was fractures, lots of fractures, if suppose they were created, tell me, can we say that there would be magma coming out and heat will also simultaneously come out? So it is believed that there would have been formation of several volcanoes. Lots of volcanism would have taken place on the surface of the earth. And as we said, with volcanism, what will be taking place further? There will be the phenomena of degassing. Okay? So there was also the phenomena of degassing. Degassing would have occurred. As we said, in this degassing, the most important part kaun sa tha? It was water vapor. Okay? So this water vapor, as you know, as it would rise upwards, what will happen with the density? As you go upwards, what happens with density? It reduces. ठीक है? It reduces. Simple सी बात है. Suppose अगर air है and there is a column of air below, then above it another column of air is kept. Above it another column of air is kept. So each of them have same mass, but can you see the volume? Because there is weight increasing as you go downwards. So when you are below, the density would be what? It would be higher. As you go upwards, the density is lower. Now simple thing is, suppose here you are, it is like this, or इसी को air को बोलते हैं. So suppose there is these three particles of air present in this air. Here when they are there, they will be more like this. Here they have become like this. So tell me, when they are present below, can we say there will be more collision between these particles? More collision between these particles means what? There will be more heat produced. So what will be the temperature? A temperature will be higher. As you are going upwards, what is taking place? They are going apart, away from each other. And that means less collision, that means less work done. Less work done means there will be less heat produced, lower temperature. So as you are going upwards, what happens with temperature? It would be declining. Okay? So when water vapor would rise upwards, will there be phenomena of condensation? Hoga. Condensation is a process through which water vapor is converted to water droplets. Okay? So there will be essentially the phenomena of condensation. So agar condensation hoga, tell me, can we say will there be formation of clouds? So scientists believe that there would have been formation of clouds, lots of cloudiness, and these clouds would have in fact covered the earth at that time. And there would have been lots of precipitation falling from these clouds. Okay? Huge amount of precipitation falling from these clouds. They believe that in the initial period, what would have happened, because the earth's surface was so much hot, this rain which was falling, it wouldn't have been able to even reach the surface. Even before that, it would have again got re-evaporated. But this process, as it happened, these cycles of precipitation and re-evaporation, it helped in cooling down the surface of the earth. So in this manner, kya hua? Earth's surface essentially got cooled down. And finally, the rain would have started to fall on the surface of the earth. Most of this rain essentially, it became the water. So most of the water vapor which came out of degassing, essentially it got converted to water, and that is today present in the oceans and other water bodies, mainly the oceans, as you know. So in this manner, our oceans were formed. Okay? So that is one thing which explains where went most of the water vapor. So most of the water vapor went into the oceans and the other water bodies. Okay? That is first. Second, what happened to the carbon dioxide? Now, if we look into, हम बाद में देखेंगे जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी में, there is a very important principle of science, any science. And what is this principle? It is principle of uniformitarianism. ठीक है? What is this principle of uniformitarianism? It says that present is key to the past. So if you want to understand the past, you study the present processes, and these present processes would also be applicable in the past. Okay? So that is basically what present is key to the past. So if we look into today's process, present process, when there is precipitation taking place, what happens? The atmospheric carbon dioxide gets dissolved in this precipitation. So actually the rain which falls down, it is not pure water, it is a weak carbonic acid. Okay? So very clearly, large amount of carbon dioxide which would have been outcome of the degassing actually was removed by what? This precipitation, this rainfall would have removed that. Okay? That means much of the carbon dioxide wo kidhar chala gaya? It went into the oceans. Okay? This is the reason we find that oceans have 60 times more CO2, carbon dioxide, than atmosphere. Okay? So much of the carbon dioxide would have been removed in this manner. However, it still doesn't explain how, if you talk about nitrogen, became the most important gas and all of the CO2 wouldn't have been removed in this manner. So for this, we have to look into the other process, which is essentially the process of life. Okay? So as we said before, what happened? There was also evolution of life. Evolution of life. So how life emerged on the Earth's surface, it is still a very controversial topic. But the most accepted view, if you talk about, is that scientists believe that some meteorite would have hit the Earth's surface, and from that, on that meteorite, life would have first come. Okay, so that is the most accepted viewpoint. So evolution of life, ultimately what we find, life evolved in the form of the prokaryote bacteria in the oceans or in the water bodies. They basically did some photosynthesis, and essentially what happened, they if you talk about, emitted oxygen, and essentially because of that, there was these water bodies became oxygen rich. But these prokaryote bacteria, they themselves couldn't survive. Okay? So what happened? They evolved into eukaryote bacteria. And from this eukaryote bacteria, the modern life essentially began. And very, very important juncture was clearly the formation of green plants. The evolution of green plants. So as green plants evolved, they performed the phenomena of photosynthesis. And this photosynthesis process, over a period of time, what it has done? It has added oxygen into the atmosphere. Okay? So it has been added into the atmosphere. So it is the process of life which has changed the environment. So progressively what happened as life evolved, it made the earth more and more habitable. And over a period of time, what has happened with the diversity of living beings? It has multiplied, it has further increased. Okay? So in this manner, our atmosphere essentially evolved. ठीक है. So that is basically the origin of the atmosphere. So बाद में देखेंगे, there is one hypothesis referred to as the Gaia hypothesis or the Gaia theory. So Gaia theory objects the basic idea of Darwin. Darwin का नाम सुना है? The theory of evolution given by Darwin. So in the theory of evolution, one problem in Darwin's theory is he just takes into account how environment affects the species. That means there is only one way relationship. Environment is affecting the species and how species are evolving accordingly. Okay? It is not wrong, but it is incomplete. Because in real world, there is always a dialectic relationship. There is a two-way relationship. So the living beings, the species have also affected the environment. As we saw here, as life evolved, it has progressively converted environment into a more habitable place. ठीक है? So that is basically the origin of the atmosphere. हम्म, यार जो सबसे ज्यादा जो गैसेस थी वो हटा दो तो जो बचा हुआ है वो बढ़ जाएगा ना. Okay, so now we'll be talking about the composition of atmosphere. उस पे आते हैं. So let us talk about the composition of the atmosphere. और इसको समझाने से पहले एक चीज मैं भूल गया, उसको भी बता देता हूं. We talked about the tertiary atmosphere. Now, the scientists believe that we are living in the era of what we call it as the Anthropocene. Anthropocene. So, what is Anthropocene? It is the time period or the part of the geological time period when the dominance of human being is extreme. So human beings have become the dominant species on the surface of the earth. So this period is referred to as the Anthropocene. Okay? And in the Anthropocene, due to the impact of the human beings, what has happened? Now there is emergence of a quaternary. Quaternary or the fourth atmosphere. Okay? A fourth atmosphere. Okay? So we will see how, what is the characteristic of this fourth atmosphere. One thing you know, what we have done with the greenhouse gases, we have definitely increased the share of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. In fact, we have added many atmospheric gases which were originally not found in the atmosphere. So there are many man-made components also being added into the atmosphere. In fact, if you look into this quaternary atmosphere, tell me in which places you will be finding it is most manifested. Can we say in the urban climates, in the cities? Cities, it is essentially most manifested. Okay? So that is also keep in mind the urban climate later we will be studying and we'll see that what changes has been done. So coming back to our topic of the composition of the atmosphere. So composition of atmosphere में first of all, what is air? एयर इज एसेंशली अ मिक्सचर. ठीक है, एयर इज एसेंशली अ मिक्सचर ऑफ what? It is a mixture of different gases in which varying amount of tiny solid and liquid particles are suspended. So write this definition down. Air is a mixture of many different gases, many different gases in which varying amount of varying amounts of tiny solid and liquid particles, tiny solid and liquid particles are suspended. ठीक है, so that is basically what is the air. So we are saying simply air is a mixture. Now, here what we are going to talk about, we have to understand the, on the basis of composition, we can divide the air into two parts. Up to the height of 80 kilometers, ठीक है, the layer of air which is found, we call it as the homosphere. We are calling it as the homosphere. ठीक है, beyond this, if you talk about, there is lying the heterosphere. ठीक है, so structure of atmosphere में मैं इसको और explain करूंगा, but here at this point of time, homosphere, question arises why we are calling it as the homosphere. Because within the homosphere, what we find, the composition of gases in dry air, is found to be uniform और कांस्टेंट. ठीक है, सो कौन सी एयर में? ड्राई एयर. रिमेंबर व्हाट इज ड्राई एयर? ड्राई एयर इज अ थियोरिटिकल कंसेप्ट. ठीक है, ये रियल में एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता, इट इज अ थियोरिटिकल कंसेप्ट. सो it is a theoretical concept from which the variable components of the air have been removed. ठीक है, so dry air is a theoretical concept from which the variable components have been removed. So what we are saying is within the homosphere there is a uniform composition of the gases we are finding. अब मेरा क्वेश्चन है, ऐसा क्यों होगा? Why it is so? Anyone? Yes, very good. Simple reason is that it is the lower part of the atmosphere, and this lower part of the atmosphere, it is the friction layer where there is lots of mixing and turbulence taking place. Okay, so this here what is taking place, there is lots of mixing and turbulence occurring, and this mixing and turbulence is the reason, if you talk about, why there is this uniform composition. And we'll see that later in heterosphere there is layers. The gases are arranged in layers according to their molecular weight. ठीक है, so that is zone of homosphere. Now within this homosphere, if we take the dry air, we find that in dry air this is the composition which is found. So you can see nitrogen, it is how much? It is 78.08% is the nitrogen. While the second most important gas is oxygen, which is 20.95%. ठीक है. So दो gases जो हैं, they are almost making 99.9% of the atmosphere. You can see. So these are what? These are the primary gases of the atmosphere. So nitrogen and oxygen. So abhi I'll explain other gases. Let us see. So there, the third gas is essentially argon. It is how much? 0.93% is essentially the argon gas. All others, which include, can you see, carbon dioxide, it is 0.038. अब ये और भी बढ़ गया है. In fact, it has gone to up to 0.04. ठीक है. Neon, if you talk about, again वो number याद नहीं हो सकते. So sequence we can just remember: neon, helium, krypton and hydrogen. ठीक है. So neon, helium, krypton and hydrogen. So this is the sequence of the gases, or these are the major components of the gaseous components of the atmosphere. अभी तो समझा. Dry air is, it doesn't exist in reality. It is a theoretical concept. ठीक है. So अगर हम सारे variable component निकाल दें and take that with the air part which is without that variable components, we will come to that. अभी मैं बताऊंगा. ठीक है. Fixed components and variable components. So there are many gases which, and the particles, they are variable components. Like for example, we will see that water vapor is what? It is variable. Similarly, we will see other gases like ozone, it is what? Variable. Dust particles, it is variable component. Okay? So if we remove these, theoretically, if we remove this and take only the fixed components, that total is basically what? It is the dry air. And on the basis of that, we are calculating these percentages. वेरिएबल किस आधार पे? वेरिएबल का मतलब क्या होता है भाई? वेरिएबल मीन्स ऑलवेज, ज्योग्राफी जब पढ़ रहे हो तो वेरिएबिलिटी विल ऑलवेज बी मैनिफेस्टेड इन स्पेस एंड टाइम. ठीक है. सो वेरिएबिलिटी विल बी फाउंड इन स्पेस एंड टाइम. सो फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ यू गो in the tropical rainforest, you will be finding that the humidity will be over 90% most of the time. ठीक है. If you go towards the desert, the humidity will be quite less. यहां पर दिल्ली की बात करें तो what will happen? Right now, अगर आजकल न्यूज़पेपर देख रहे हो तो you might have seen that the humidity has increased. It is above 80%, 90%. When we are in the dry period, then like the winters, it is very less. So that is basically the variability. Okay. So if you talk about, that is, this is the composition that we are finding. So एक एक करके बात करते हैं कुछ जो gases हैं. सबसे पहले बात करते हैं नाइट्रोजन. ठीक है. So first if we talk about the nitrogen. So tell me, nitrogen has been added into the atmosphere. What is the primary way? Primary manner in which it is added? It is essentially added through the phenomena of degassing. अभी देखा था हमने. So the primary mechanism through which it is added in the atmosphere is the degassing phenomena. There are some other natural processes as well, ठीक है, through which it can be added into the atmosphere. बाद में, however, we'll see in environment geography, environment ecology, the nitrogen cycle. So we will talk about that. What are those other processes? For example, from the soil, by the denitrifying bacteria, again it can be added into the atmosphere. ठीक है. So nitrogen is essentially added through the process of degassing. Now, what is the very, very important thing about nitrogen is nitrogen doesn't take part in the weather phenomena. ठीक है. It doesn't takes part in the weather phenomena. So it doesn't plays a more important role in the weather phenomena. It is the most important gas. Still, it doesn't plays a major role or a role in the weather phenomena. इसका मेन रोल क्या है नाइट्रोजन का? Yes, it is essential for the life processes. Very importantly, it also in a way controls the impact of oxygen. ऑक्सीजन क्या होता है? इट इज अ कंबस्टिबल गैस, ठीक है? सो बिकॉज इट्स proportion is very high compared to if you talk about oxygen. So because of that, it is controlling the effect of oxygen. So that is the other important role of nitrogen. But as we said, from our purpose in climatology, nitrogen doesn't play any role in the weather phenomena. Then coming to oxygen, ऑक्सीजन की बात करें तो oxygen is how much? It is 20.95%. We have already seen that oxygen was mainly added through the process of photosynthesis. It was mainly added through the process of photosynthesis. Now, very important thing here again, oxygen also doesn't plays a major role in the weather phenomena. Okay? So it also doesn't plays a major role in the weather phenomena. That means the primary gases, the most important gases, they don't play major any role in the weather phenomena. तो इसका मतलब कौन सी गैसेस प्ले कर रही हैं? It is the secondary gases and the variable components which are more important from the perspective of weather. ठीक है? So as we said, very important among these is which one? It is the carbon dioxide. ठीक है? So the gases essentially which are playing important role, these are referred to as the greenhouse gases. So I hope you understand what is a greenhouse gas. A greenhouse gas is one which will allow the insolation to reach to the earth's surface. So it will be transparent to the incoming solar radiation. ठीक है? But what will happen? The outgoing radiations from the earth's surface, they will be trapped. So such type of gases are essentially referred to as the greenhouse gases. ठीक है? Two very commonly found greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide and water vapor. ठीक है? Both are very powerful greenhouse gases. So as we said, if you talk about carbon dioxide, we have seen it has also been added into the atmosphere through degassing. Primary process has been the degassing process. ठीक है? बाद में कार्बन साइकिल में देखेंगे बहुत सारे अदर pathways of addition of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, both natural and man-made. For example, एक छोटा सा example लो. When there is magma coming from beneath, ठीक है? It contains these gases. ठीक है? Can we say when this magma will solidify, part of these gases, will they solidify with the magma? Will they get trapped? Yes, they will get trapped. That means the igneous rocks which would be formed, will they also contain these greenhouse gas or these gases which were coming out of degassing? Yes. यानी कि अगर फ्यूचर में इन रॉक्स की वेदरिंग होती है, so what will happen? Will they be released into the atmosphere? Yes, they will be released into the atmosphere. Okay? So there will be many natural processes we will see through which it will be further added into the atmosphere. As we said, very important role of carbon dioxide is what? It is a primary greenhouse gas. It is a major greenhouse gas of the atmosphere. And because it is which type of gas? It is not the variable component which we saw. The variable component like if you talk about water vapor and others, it is not. It is part of the dry air. That means it is uniformly present in the atmosphere. So because of that, what it would do? It helps in regulation of Earth's temperature. It helps in the regulation of the Earth's temperature. In other words, it helps in maintenance of an average temperature of the Earth. ठीक है? So you can understand, आज की डेट में what has happened, human beings have made carbon dioxide look a villain gas. ठीक है? It is implicated as the cause of global warming. But can you think of carbon dioxide without carbon dioxide? Can there be possibility of life? Definitely not. It is also very, very important to the life processes. Most importantly, it is maintaining a regular temperature of the earth. Okay? So that is basically the role of carbon dioxide. But what has happened, we will later see. In recent times, what we have done, this is what we have done with the carbon dioxide. So it is not the carbon dioxide which is villain. We are the villains. So what we have done, you can see that it has very much increased. So when such type of gases whose proportion is very, very less in the atmosphere, we use the term ppm for that. That is parts per million. If it is even less, then we are using ppb, parts per billion. So here we are talking about the ppm, that is parts per million. So you can see that by 2000 itself, it was over 380. Before the industrial era, what was the case? It was below 280. And what has happened now? It has gone above 380. In fact, the latest IPCC report says that it is around above 400. Okay? Now it has reached above 400 ppm. So very, very clearly, this is the change which is being done, and we will see the implication of that is the global warming phenomena. So this is your carbon dioxide. So these are the major gases which are part of the dry gas. All other जो हमने देखी थी, tell me, were those inert gases? Most of the other gases of the dry gas, they were inert gases. So they are not playing important role in the weather phenomena. So what are the gases which are playing important role or other components? These include, one is water vapor. Water vapor. If you talk about, the other one is the aerosols, which include the dust particles. These are the solids and liquids suspended in the air. If you talk about others like ozone, okay? So these are the three most important commonly found variable components present in the atmosphere. There are some other which we will see, and these are, if you talk about the reactive components, some of the reactive components which are present in the atmosphere, they are also variable, part of the variable component. Like for example, we will see one of it is the sulfur dioxide. Other, if you talk about, is the nitrogen oxides. Nitrogen oxides. Okay? So sulfur and its components and nitrogen and its component, these are the reactive components present in the atmosphere. And much of them have been added in the atmosphere through what? Through the activities of the human beings. Okay? They are mainly, yes, they are mainly anthropogenic in nature. Okay? So we will talk about all these reactive components. These are also, हम बाद में देखेंगे, these are also referred to as the pollutants. Pollutant. So what is a pollutant? Pollutant is something which is not normally present in the environment and which has also harmful effect in the environment. Okay? So that is what we call it as the pollutant. So many of these are essentially the pollutant gases. So if we start one by one, first if you talk about the water vapor. We have already seen water has been added on the Earth's surface or water vapor through the process of degassing. Okay, there was lots of debate around surrounding this from where the water has come in the atmosphere or on the surface of the earth. Now there is a very clear cut understanding, and there are several evidences which suggest that it has come from inside the earth. There was another prominent view before, and this was that it might would have arrived with meteorite hitting the earth's surface, so it would have been water rich. So that was one view. Today scientists are very clear that it has come from inside the earth because we find that it is found in the degassing process. Recent studies of the interior of the earth have further proven this idea to be true. For example, in the mantle there is one mineral, ring woodite, which they have found, and this ring woodite mineral has very high percentage of water in its composition. Okay? So water vapor has clearly come to the earth's surface from inside the earth. Now, what is the main role of water vapor? It is a very powerful greenhouse gas. It is essentially a very powerful greenhouse gas. Okay? Now, I'm using the word powerful greenhouse gas. You can understand that majority of weather phenomena where they are occurring in the troposphere, lower part of the atmosphere. They are occurring in the troposphere. And if I try to look into the cause of this, we can find one relationship. 99% of water vapor is contained where? It is contained in the troposphere. Okay? So there is a very strong relationship between water vapor and the weather phenomena. ठीक है? देखो हम एक चीज देखेंगे बाद में when we will reach to the topic of insulation and heat budget. वहां पर हम देखेंगे that on the surface of the earth, because of various factors like the sphere surface, curved surface of the earth, angle of incidence because of that changes, and various other factors, there are different parts of the earth surface which are receiving different amount of insolation. ठीक है? In fact, हम देखेंगे what is the case if you look into this is suppose 0 degree and this is suppose 40 degree. So what we will be finding is something like this. So this red curve represents the insolation received. ठीक है? This green curve represents the outgoing terrestrial radiations. ठीक है? So can you see that there is an area where there is surplus of energy and there is an area where there is deficit of energy. ठीक है? अगर ये surplus और deficit ऐसे ही बना रहता, so tell me, the areas located within 40-degree latitude, should they become progressively hotter with time? Outside these, the areas should become progressively cooler with time. Okay? That means very clearly we find that it is not happening. What it means? That there is a mechanism which maintains this balance. Okay? So what is this mechanism? This mechanism is the weather phenomena. So why weather phenomena are taking place? To maintain that equilibrium budget or that balance. ठीक है, and in that water vapor is playing a very very important role. So how it is playing an important role? Tell me, what will happen with water if it absorbs specific heat or latent heat of vaporization? So there will be phenomena of evaporation, and will it be converted into water vapor? Yes or no? It will be converted to water vapor. That means water vapor is not just water, it is also water plus heat. Okay? So when this water will be converted to vapor and winds are carrying this water vapor, they are not just carrying water, they are also carrying heat. Okay? So where there will be phenomena of condensation, वहां पर क्या होगा? Water vapor, there will be phenomena of condensation. So there will be formation of water droplets, and what will be released? Latent heat of condensation. Latent heat of condensation would be released. Okay? So who is very much involved in the transfer of heat? It is water vapor. ठीक है? So that is essentially the role of water vapor. Then coming to other variable component, that is the aerosols. Aerosols. So aerosols, as we talked before, what are aerosols? These are the tiny solids, solid and liquid particles suspended in the air. Suspended in the air. So there can be variety of sources through which these aerosols can reach the air. Like for example, normally, the dust can be lifted by the winds. That is one source. Or there is fall of cosmic dust as meteorites, asteroids are burning. There is fall of that cosmic dust. That is also becoming these aerosols. Various, if you talk about parts of plants, pollens, etc., taken upwards, again they are becoming aerosols. Breaking of the waves, it will lead to spraying of salts. So those salts can also become part of the aerosols. Several other ways, like for example, human beings are burning something. So that soot that goes, that carbon soot, that can also become aerosols. Other ways naturally also, for example, we will later see that with the phenomena of lightning, okay, when it reacts with nitrogen in the atmosphere, there can also be creation of aerosols. Okay? So there are various ways in which the aerosols can be produced in the atmosphere. Okay? Now what is the role of the aerosols? Aerosols, tell me, can we say, will they determine the transparency of the atmosphere? They will essentially determine the transparency of the atmosphere. Transparency of the atmosphere. Okay? Now, very, very importantly, you can understand thus two terms are related, बाद में भी देखेंगे climate change में. You must have heard about the phenomena of dimming and brightening. So dimming and brightening. So what is dimming? Dimming is a scenario where less sunlight is able to reach to the earth's surface. And why it would be? In general, one factor, one cause can be excess of aerosols. When the aerosols increase in the atmosphere, they will lead to the global dimming phenomenon. Global brightening, if you talk about, would be a situation when there is reduction in the aerosols. Okay? So that is very important role of the aerosols. Now aerosols also play other role. Because of these aerosols, very important thing which happens is that the different colors of the sky are seen. Okay? So you know the sky sometimes appears blue, sometimes it appears reddish, orangish in color. So it is result of these presence of these aerosols. Okay? So actually there are two phenomena which can occur in the atmosphere. One is, if you talk about, uh, is suppose sunlight is coming and it is reflected back. So this phenomena is what? It is reflection. But there is another phenomena which can take place. This phenomena we call it as scattering. Okay? And if you talk about scattering, it always occurs in the which part of the spectrum of light? In the short wavelength. In always the short wavelength. That means towards the blue light of the spectrum it would be taking place. So what is the scattering? Here the light would be scattered in all directions. Okay? So this is the phenomena of scattering. Scattering. अब देखो, daytime, if you look upwards, the sky will appear blue. Does it appears blue? Obviously, yes. It appears blue. So why it is so? Because there is scattering of blue light taking place. And thus what happens? The sky appears blue. But when I am looking at the time of sunrise and sunset, what happens with the sky color? It appears reddish orangish. Okay? So at that time it is appearing reddish orangish in color. So why it is so? Because at this point of time the rays are highly tilted. The sun rays are very much tilted, due to which there is complete scattering and loss of the blue light. ठीक है, याद रखना स्कैटरिंग हमेशा किस में होती है? ब्लू लाइट में ही होती है. So there is complete scattering and loss of the blue light take place because the rays are highly tilted, and thus what happens? The only light we are able to see is this reddish orangish light, and that is why the various colors of the sky are seen. Okay? So that is basically the role of the aerosols. Human beings have gone to the level of insanity, and you can understand that these days some of the scientists are suggesting that one of the ways of dealing with the global warming is that we artificially introduce aerosols in the stratosphere. So that would cut off light, lots of light, and definitely that would help in cooling down. So again, you can understand the level of insanity is huge. Okay. Moving on to the other important variable component of the atmosphere, it is ozone. Ozone. So ozone की बात करें, ozone, you know, it is O3. ठीक है? Now, we will see that there is a layer in our atmosphere which is referred to as ozonosphere. So ozonosphere is a sub-layer within the stratosphere. Generally, it lies where between 15 to 35 kilometer. That is the level in which it is lying. In simple words, it is the height in which there is high concentration of ozone found. Okay? So let us see what will be the factors which would be leading to the formation of ozone in this stratosphere. So if we talk about this, presence of ozone is always explained by what? It is explained by the Chapman cycle. Okay? So it is outcome of Chapman cycle. And what this Chapman cycle says, that concentration of ozone will be function of two processes. Which are the two processes? Formation of ozone and dissociation of ozone. So these processes keep going on, and that the relationship between these two processes would determine the concentration of ozone which would be present at a place. Okay? So if we first talk about the formation of ozone, how it would be occurring? Oxygen can absorb some parts of the UV light. Okay? So UV rays, and it can get dissociated into two oxygen atoms. Now, if there is presence of Chapman constant, then there will be formation of ozone. अब ये Chapman constant क्या है? सिंपल भाषा में बोलें तो दिस चैपमैन कांस्टेंट इज एसोसिएटेड विथ अ मिनिमम डेंसिटी ऑफ द एटमॉस्फेयर. ठीक है? सो इट इज एसोसिएटेड विद द मिनिमम डेंसिटी ऑफ द एटमॉस्फेयर. सो थिंक, अगर सपोज करो कि ये एक सिचुएशन है और ये एक सिचुएशन है. सो हियर देयर इज वन ऑक्सीजन एटम and there is one oxygen molecule. Here there is one oxygen atom and here there is one oxygen molecule. In which of these the collision between the two is seems to be more probable? The first one. Okay? So there is a minimum density which is required for the phenomena, this phenomena, the collision between these two to take place for the formation of ozone. ठीक है? So इससे हम दो चीजें निकाल सकते हैं. One, mainly here, tell me, can we say there are two factors which determine the formation of ozone? Two factors which determine the formation of ozone. And which are these two factors? One is amount of UV rays available. So amount of UV rays available. And second one, the density of the atmosphere. एटमॉस्फेयर. सो दो फैक्टर्स हैं फॉर्मेशन को जो डिटरमाइन कर रहे हैं. इफ वी टॉक अबाउट डिसोसिएशन of ozone, so how it occurs? It is very simple, you know. Ozone is a important gas which absorbs UV rays. It protects us from the ultraviolet radiations. So what it does, it absorbs UV rays, and when it absorbs UV rays, it is again dissociated into oxygen molecule and oxygen atom. ठीक है? यानी कि डिसोसिएशन को इंपैक्ट करने वाला कौन सा फैक्टर होगा? ओनली वन फैक्टर इज अफेक्टिंग that is the amount of UV rays available. अमाउंट ऑफ यूवी रेज अवेलेबल, ठीक है। अब देखते हैं कि कैसे डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है इन दोनों के बेसिस पर जो अभी तक पढ़ा है। लेट अस सी हाउ ओजोन इज डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड इन द स्ट्रेटोस्फीयर। सो इफ वी टॉक अबाउट, देयर इज, सपोज दिस इज 60 किलोमीटर हाइट, ठीक है। देयर इज अनदर लेवल 40 किलोमीटर, 15 किलोमीटर, ठीक है। सो above 60 kilometer there is no formation of ozone. No formation of ozone is taking place above 60 kilometers. Then between 60 to 40 kilometer there is maximum formation of ozone is occurring. In this there is maximum concentration of ozone. You know, this is the layer which we are calling it as the ozonosphere, ठीक है। And here very less formation of ozone, very less formation of ozone. ओके, सो कोई मुझे समझा सकता है कि ऐसा क्यों होगा? दिमाग लगाओ, वही जो दो बातें हमने बताई उसी पर बेस्ड होगा ये पूरा। फर्स्ट, नो फॉर्मेशन इज टेकिंग प्लेस। फॉर्मेशन में हमने देखा था देयर वर टू फैक्टर्स। यहां पर डेंसिटी विल बी लेस, सो लेस डेंसिटी, एंड दैट इज व्हाई देयर इज नो सच चैपमैन कांस्टेंट फाउंड, एंड thus देयर इज नो फॉर्मेशन, ठीक है। Maximum formation of ozone is taking place. Here, there is enough density, but second important point, the amount of UV rays available is maximum. ठीक है, so यहां पर there is maximum formation taking place, but अगर हमने अभी याद हो तो देखा था कि this amount of UV rays available also determines the process of dissociation. यानी कि यहां पर फॉर्मेशन का रेट तो हाई है, बट डिसोसिएशन रेट इज ऑल्सो हाई, ठीक है। नाउ बिकॉज हियर देयर इज ओजोन, यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड, सो इफ सपोज यूवी रेज आर कमिंग फ्रॉम हियर, will they be getting filtered and only less of these would be able to reach the lower layer? होगा। So when we are talking about concentration here, in this zone there is increase in the density, ठीक है। Although less UV rays are available, but increase in density compensates for that, so there is enough formation, ठीक है। But हमने क्या देखा था? Dissociation is just function of one factor, that is UV rays availability. So that means in this layer there is less dissociation taking place. So here we find that there is maximum concentration of ozone, ठीक है। If you talk about below this, what has happened? Even less UV rays are reaching, and thus there is very limited formation of ozone below this, ठीक है। So this is how the ozone is distributed in the stratosphere, ठीक है। आज के लिए बंद करते हैं, because it is my time is over, so you have a mapping class also. So tomorrow we'll continue with this, and tomorrow, you know, the topic is we'll be entering into the insolation and heat budget. So that is a topic which for me it is a most important topic of the entire climatology lecture, ठीक है। So goodbye. Take care. We'll meet tomorrow.